Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen adjusted his collar nervously as the shuttle docked with the massive Kethmori flagship Sovereign Dawn. The Galactic Defense Coalition had assigned him as a human observer to the Joint Fleet operation. Nothing more than a diplomatic gesture to acknowledge humanity's recent membership in the Alliance. His orders were clear: watch, learn, and file reports. Do not interfere. The airlock cycled open, revealing the impressive sight of the Kethmori Bridge. Towering insectoid beings moved with fluid precision, their crystalline exoskeletons catching the blue light of holographic displays. Admiral Zekth, the fleet commander, turned his compound eyes toward Marcus with what might have been polite acknowledgement. Human observer. Zekth's translator rendered his chittering speech into crisp, standard. You may position yourself at the auxiliary station. Remain silent during operations. Marcus nodded, taking his designated spot at the edge of the bridge. Around him, the Allied fleet stretched across space. 312 ships from 7 different species, all united against the Devourers, a hive-mind race that consumed entire star systems. This was humanity's first glimpse into true galactic warfare. The first engagement began 3 hours later. Marcus watched in fascination as the tactical display showed the enemy swarm approaching, thousands of organic ships that moved like a living tide across space. The Allied fleet arranged itself in the classical Kethmori formation, a defensive sphere with heavy cruisers at the core and fighters on the perimeter. Devourer Vanguard entering weapons range, announced the tactical officer. Admiral Zekth raised his primary arms. All ships maintain formation. Fire when they reach optimal range. Marcus frowned. The enemy formation was clearly designed to overwhelm specific points in the sphere while avoiding the main firing arcs. He'd seen similar patterns in human naval history. The tactics of Admirals Nelson and Zheng He came to mind. But this wasn't his fight to direct. The battle unfolded exactly as Marcus had predicted. The Devourers punched through the fleet's defensive gaps, overwhelming 2 Veltarian destroyers before the Allies could respond. The sphere formation, while elegant, proved too rigid against such an adaptive enemy. Sir, Marcus found himself speaking before he could stop. Permission to make an observation? Zekth's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was annoyance. You were instructed to remain silent, human. With respect, Admiral, your formation is being systematically dismantled. The Devourers are using breakthrough tactics. Silence. Zekth's chitin flared. We have fought the Devourers for 3 centuries. We do not require lessons from a species that has barely left its home system. Marcus bit his tongue and watched as 12 more Allied ships fell to the coordinated assault. The fleet's casualties mounted while the Devourers adapted to every move the Allies made. The second wave arrived 6 hours later, and Marcus couldn't remain quiet any longer. Admiral, if I may suggest a modification to your defensive pattern. Absolutely not. Zekth turned fully toward him, his massive form radiating authority. You are here as an observer only. But Captain Rilnara of the Zephyrian light cruiser Star Whisper had been listening. Her people were known for their tactical flexibility, and she'd noticed the same patterns Marcus had identified. Admiral, she interjected through the communication channel, perhaps we should consider the humans' perspective. Their species has an unusual approach to warfare. Zekth's compound eyes glittered with irritation, but protocol demanded he allow Allied captains to speak. Very well. Human observer, you have 30 seconds. Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding. The Devourers fight like water. They flow around obstacles and exploit weaknesses. Your sphere formation creates predictable gaps they can target. Instead, we should use a fluid defense. Overlapping fields of fire, mobile reserve units, and adaptive positioning. Theoretical nonsense. Zekth dismissed. The sphere has protected the galaxy for... His words were cut off as proximity alarms screamed across the bridge. The third Devourer wave had arrived, and it was 3 times larger than intelligence had predicted. Admiral, the tactical officer's voice cracked with barely controlled panic. Enemy force strength is overwhelming. They're surrounding the entire fleet. Marcus watched the tactical display with growing horror. The Devourers had learned from the previous engagements and now moved in perfect coordination to envelope the Allied formation. Within minutes, the sphere would collapse entirely. "All ships maintain formation," Zekth commanded, but Marcus could hear the uncertainty in his translated voice. "Sir, with respect, maintaining formation now means total annihilation," Marcus said quietly. "Give me tactical control for 5 minutes. Let me show you how humans fight when outnumbered." The bridge fell silent except for the constant stream of damage reports flowing in from the fleet. Zekth's compound eyes fixed on Marcus for a long moment. "You would stake your species' reputation on this?" "I'd stake all our lives on it, because that's what's at risk right now." Zekth's mandibles clicked once, the Kethmori equivalent of a nod. "Fleet-wide channel open. All ships, this is Admiral Zekth. You will take tactical orders from Human Observer Chen for the next 5 minutes." Marcus stepped to the central command console, his mind racing through centuries of human military doctrine. Nelson at Trafalgar, Hannibal at Cannae, Sun Tzu's principles, all of it crystallized into a single desperate plan. "All ships, break formation immediately. Light units, form hunter-killer packs of 3. Heavy cruisers, begin a fighting retreat toward coordinates I'm transmitting. Carriers, launch all fighters and pull back to maximum range." "Human, this is madness," protested Captain Velmore of the Kethmori heavy cruiser dominance. "You're ordering us to scatter." "I'm ordering you to become unpredictable," Marcus replied, his voice gaining confidence. "Devourers expect patterns. We're going to give them chaos." What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The Allied fleet dissolved into dozens of independent units, each moving according to Marcus's constantly evolving tactical updates. Instead of a rigid formation to be overwhelmed, the Devourers faced a swarm of coordinated threats that struck from unexpected angles and vanished before retaliation could arrive. The hunter-killer packs worked in perfect coordination, using their superior firepower to eliminate Devourer nodes before melting away. The heavy cruisers drew the main enemy force into a running battle that prevented the Devourers from achieving local superiority anywhere. Most importantly, the carriers remained safe and continued feeding fresh fighters into the battle. "Impossible," whispered the Zephyrian tactical officer. "Casualty ratios are... We're winning." Marcus allowed himself a small smile as he watched the tactical display. The Devourer formation, bred for overwhelming static defenses, couldn't adapt to the fluid, aggressive tactics he'd employed. Their coordination, their greatest strength, became a liability when faced with targets that refused to stay in one place. "Devourer forces are retreating," announced the communications officer, disbelief evident in his voice. They're actually retreating." The bridge erupted in chittering, whistling, and other expressions of joy from the various species represented. Admiral Zekth approached Marcus slowly, his compound eyes reflecting something that might have been respect. "Human," he said quietly, "your 5 minutes ended 23 minutes ago." Marcus looked around the bridge at the faces and face analogs, staring at him with new understanding. He'd come as an observer, but in the crucible of battle, he'd become something else entirely. "Admiral," he said, "I believe we need to discuss new fleet protocols." 3 months later, Marcus Chen stood on the flag bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, now his flagship, watching as the reformed Allied fleet prepared for its next engagement. The old rigid formations had been replaced by fluid, adaptive tactics that had proven devastatingly effective against the Devourers. He'd been sent as an observer, but he'd left commanding the entire fleet. And for the first time in galactic history, the Devourers were in full retreat.